For the longest time, professional wrestling was considered the land of the giants. When WCW made its power move against the WWF in the mid-90s, it did so on the back of a slogan screaming that it was where the big boys play. Just look at that adjective. Big men ruled the roost, and if you were over 6 foot tall, there was a good chance you'd get a fair shake in one of the two big companies. So you're telling me there's a chance? Being a giant is no longer a necessary skill needed to forge a career in professional wrestling, as Kevin Nash's famed vanilla midgets, is this okay, have gone on to claim the biggest prizes in the game. Just to qualify, by the way, those champions of equal height are separated by weight, and only world championships won under the watch of the WWWF, WWF, and WWE are up for listing, which is bad news for fans of Taz, or fans of David Arquette, if they exist. I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, and these are the 10 shortest WWE champions ever. Number 10, Buddy Rogers. Just edging out Bret Hart on weight difference, don't blame me, blame Wikipedia, this list begins with a man who would be notoriously aped by Ric Flair. Buddy Rogers was the original Nature Boy. He used the figure 4 leg lock as a finisher, with considerably more success than Flair, and had the hair and mannerisms to boot. Rogers was also the very first Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion, claiming the belt all the way back in 1963. The story was that Rogers won a tournament in Rio de Janeiro, but as with most things WWE related, it's bollocks. The truth was that he was the NWA champion when the WWWF broke away. Vince McMahon Sr. wasn't exactly too happy with Rogers as his champion, however, and just 22 days later, he lost the strap to Bruno Sammartino. We'll get to him. Number 9, Chris Jericho. Billed as the exact same height and weight as Buddy Rogers, Chris Jericho has had a different career, to say the least. Upon arriving in the World Wrestling Federation in 1999, Y2J was immediately thrust into the big time by interrupting none other than The Rock, in what has been remembered as arguably the most iconic debut of all time. Well, maybe after this guy. Jericho didn't exactly hit the ground running, however, and for a few months after making his debut, he was a healthy scratch from pay-per-views and found himself feuding with China. He was able to rebuild himself, though, to the point where, in December of 2001, he became the very first undisputed champion in company history. He defeated The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the same night, and if you haven't heard him mention this, are you even a wrestling fan? Number 8, Dolph Ziggler. Ziggler's history at the top of the WWE table is, understatement alert, checkered to say the least. Ziggler is listed as being a 2-time World Heavyweight Champion, but when one of those reigns lasted all of 11 minutes, it's difficult to count it in truth. Ziggler didn't even have to win a match to gain the title, so it's best to forget about it. Like this, and bloody hell, this crap too. His second run came to an abrupt end thanks to an untimely concussion, but it did give us one of the biggest pops in recent memory. Ziggler had held the Money in the Bank briefcase for all of 267 days, and the night after WrestleMania 29, finally cashed it in on a prone Alberto Del Rio. Yay! This reign, though, would last just 67 days, losing the title back to ADR at Payback. Oh. Even though WWE teases a Ziggler push every bloody year, he seems to get further and further away from adding to these two disappointing championship reigns. Still though, we'll always have the memories. Number 7, AJ Styles. Be honest, when AJ Styles rocked up at the 2016 Royal Rumble, did any of us actually think he'd become WWE champion? He's unquestionably got the ability, but this is Vince McMahon we're dealing with here. A man whose philosophy can be distilled into what my girlfriend tells me all the time. Size is everything. Nevertheless, he not only became WWE champion, defeating Dean Ambrose at Backlash via a maneuver he would subsequently become very familiar with, getting hit in the dick, but in his second run as champ, taking the title from Jinder, thank God, he held the title for over a year before dropping it to Daniel Bryan because he doesn't wear a cup. When will you learn, AJ? Number 6, Chris Benoit. He may have gone on to become the most infamous, redacted pro wrestler in history, but when Chris Benoit tapped Triple H out in the center of the ring in Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania 20, it truly felt like a monumental moment. Benoit had always been considered too small, but here he was, rightly on top of the hill. Benoit was embraced by his longtime friend Eddie Guerrero after the match, who was the other world champion in WWE at the time, and Kevin Nash, with one of the worst wrestling takes ever, described this as the moment the business died. Some may agree with that, but it's difficult to deny what an infamous and heartwarming moment it was. Number 5. Bruno Sammartino. The man who ended Buddy Rogers' 22-day reign as the first WWWF champion would go on to hold that very same belt for, quite a bit longer. Bruno Sammartino was WWWF champion for a whopping 2,803 days, which, for the curious, is over 7.5 years. And you thought Cena had it for too long. Bruno would get a second run just under 3 years after losing it and would again hold the belt for an absolute age. 1,237 days. Quite obviously, these two reigns make Bruno Sammartino the longest cumulative reigning champion in company history, holding the top belt for a total of 4,040 days, which amounts to over 11 years, or to put it another way, the length of time Kofi Kingston has been with WWE. Jesus. He did this while standing no taller than 5 feet 10 inches, something that is often forgotten when discussing the career of the Italian Stallion. Not that one. He had a presence that was larger than life and seemed to carry himself like a champion at all times. Number 4. Pedro Morales. Billed as 30 pounds lighter than Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales became the 4th WWWF champion in company history when he defeated Ivan Koloff on February 8, 1971. The late Morales held the title for over 1,000 days himself, clinging onto it until he was defeated by Stan Stasiak on December 1st, 1973. Yeah, they hadn't heard of hot potatoes back then. Morales would return to what had become the WWF in the 1980s, winning the Intercontinental Championship and Tag Team Championships with Bob Backlund in the process, making him the first Triple Crown champion in company history. Much like Sammartino, Morales carried himself as if he was much larger than 5'10", an important ability to possess if you're front and center as champion of a company. Number 3. Daniel Bryan. The final member of the Builders 5'10" club, yes, that's the thing, Daniel Bryan is in some seriously illustrious company. Bryan's run to the top of the company was extremely well documented, as it seemed that his rise was forced upon the company by the sheer overwhelming power of his popularity. The power of the Yes Movement. I love you, Big Dave, but even I was saying Bootista. Arguably more so than anyone on this list, Daniel Bryan proved that the cream always rises to the top in professional wrestling. Eventually. The two men shorter than him to win top gold in the WWE both came out of a different scene, whereas Bryan's run in World Wrestling Entertainment saw him immediately thrust into the land of the giants. Oh, he looks like their pet. As Bryan stood atop the turnbuckles, holding aloft both the WWE Championship and World Heavyweight Championship at the climax of WrestleMania 30, it felt like a victory for more than just the man himself. It was a truly moving and monumental moment. A B+ player indeed. Number 2. Eddie Guerrero. If Daniel Bryan made his way to the top through sheer ability and popularity, Eddie Guerrero had a far more convoluted route there. A route that needed a lot of talent, a load of hard work, and a whole hunk of willpower and redemption. Eddie first came to prominence in ECW and WCW, where he put on classic matches against men of similar size, such as Dean Malenko. Eddie's WWE Championship win at No Way Out 2004, though, was one of the greatest moments in WWE history, alongside Hogan slamming Andre, Undertaker and Mankind, and of course Choppy PP. Anyway, he defeated none other than Brock Lesnar to win the championship, thanks in small part to an assist from Goldberg. Thanks, Bill. That should take nothing away from Eddie, though, and as he celebrated in the crowd after the win, it seemed like a victory for smaller wrestlers worldwide. Eddie was in line to win World Championship gold for a second time in November 2005, when tragedy struck, as Latino Heat was found dead in his hotel room in Minnesota. Number 1. Rey Mysterio. Is there any doubt as to whether Rey Mysterio is the greatest cruiserweight wrestler of all time? The biggest little man in wrestling, or my best friend as I like to call him, found himself propelled into World Heavyweight Championship contention in the wake of Eddie's death, and he arrived at his destiny by defeating Kurt Angle and Randy Orton in a triple threat match at WrestleMania 22. Rey would also get a run with the WWE Championship, but this one would prove short-lived. When CM Punk walked out on the company in 2011, the company was left without a champion, and a tournament was held to fill the vacancy. Mysterio would win the tournament, defeating The Miz in the final, but then John Cena came back, and as we all know, Cena wins lol. Rey Mysterio defied all the odds and general wrestling logic to become World Heavyweight Champion. Even in the modern age, where height is less of a factor in determining an individual's chances in the sport, it's unlikely that WWE will crown a world champion who stands shorter than Rey Mysterio anytime soon. Sorry, Hornswoggle. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And check out our new wrestling podcast by searching for What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes or Spotify. Thanks for watching. I've been Adam from WhatCulture, and I'll see you soon.